Hi, everybody. This is Mitch Herndon coming to you live from Chapel Hill, North Carolina in the United States. I have with me Manpreet, Tina, and Seb. You guys want to introduce yourselves real quickly? Manpreet, I think you're on mute.
Wow, of course I was. Hi everyone, my name is Manpreet Sokhi and I'm talking to you from London, UK.
Hi everyone, my name is Tina Bornemann. I'm talking to you today from Germany.
Hey everyone, this is Seb Moidy. I'm over in Apex, North Carolina, just right down the road from Mitch.
Which is a good thing or a bad thing, depending. So first, real big thanks to iCAN and to Leanne and to Amy, and a big thanks for Dr. Chang for kicking us off with such a good session. We're really glad to be here. We have about, 55 minutes to an hour to talk, and we really want to hear from you guys, the youth. And that microphone, that image is, think about now is a good time for us to hear your voice. We really want to listen to you. So we'll have some questions. We'll have some polling to be done. But this is hopefully the first of many encounters that you can have where you can give your feedback, give your opinion, give your thoughts. So on that note, a little bit about UCB. So, oops. Did it go forward? There we go. So UCB, we're a mid-sized pharmaceutical company. We have offices in probably just over 40 countries throughout the world. We really specialize in working with patients who live with chronic diseases, chronic indications. If you need more to hear about UCB, please go to ucb.com. The agenda is first we'll share a little bit about the four of us and give you a glimpse into who we are. And then we'll dive right into the deep end and start really asking you some questions and really want you to speak up and let us know. We'll have, again, some polling options, but also just some free chat. We do have a short video that we'll show, and I promise it's short. It's not too lengthy, but we'll look forward to hearing from you and getting some feedback on that. And then hopefully, similar to Dr. Chang, we should have some time for Q&A toward the end. So I hope you like that image there. Again, that's a microphone. So again, the intent here is for us to really hear from you all. So on that note, so you're looking at four sections, A, B, C, and D. We want you to kind of guess a little bit about Seb, myself, Tina, and Manpreet. So on that top left corner, one of us is a big fan of Harry Potter. We live near Kate Middleton's grandparents, and we really enjoy bike riding. B, this person doesn't just love PlayStation games, but they have to be PlayStation games with a good story. This person really likes Star Trek more than Star Wars. They enjoy photography. Going to the bottom left, C, this person plays tennis and golf, does some canoeing and kayaking, and works some with carpentry like tree houses and deck. And then finally, D, this person is an exercise guru, is fluent in French, and swam the butterfly stroke in college. So this is our first poll. Let's see how we do here. If you can guess, for A, is it Manpreet, Mitch, Seb, or Tina? B, etc. So please dive on in there with your guesses. And don't worry, we won't be offended if you pick the incorrect one. And I'll give this a few seconds. Are we ready? Ready to do some answers here? All right, so there's our answer. Manpreet, you go first. You want to describe a little bit about one of your choices?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Gryffindor. So I'm the Harry Potter fan, absolutely obsessed with anything to do with Harry Potter. And yeah, so I thought I'd put that as my fun fact. Hopefully, if you guys like Harry Potter, you are also part of the same house. If not, it's fine.
And Tina, how about you?
Sure. So I'm the Star Trek, PlayStation, photography person. So yeah, I got a PlayStation quite late. I got it maybe 3 years ago or something, but I really enjoy it. Big Star Trek fan for longer than 3 years. And yeah, I love taking my camera out and take some really lovely pictures of landscape and architecture and whatever is there to photograph.
Cool. And Seb? Oh, Seb, you're on mute. You're still on mute.
Sorry, guys.
You're
I'm the exercise guru, and I got my goggles. So you guys can see. Yeah, so I swam in college, actually right down the road where Mitch is at in Chapel Hill. So I did that all 4 years, so it was quite an experience. And since then, I've also continued to do some more exercise and be really enthusiastic into working out and staying healthy. And the last piece is I am fluent in French because both my parents are from France. So they came over in the late 70s, and I was born here.
Very cool. Thank you, sir. And for me, I enjoy playing tennis with my kids. I have a 16-year-old, 14-year-old, and 10-year-old. I play golf with my 10-year-old. I love canoeing and kayaking. I don't do that as much as I should. And I've built a treehouse and a deck. They aren't necessarily the safest treehouse and deck, but they're good for who they're for. They're good for our family. So thank you, guys. Now let's dive into some of these questions. So you have, let me pause for a second if there's a delay, but you have 6 letters there in front of you. And we want to ask, what words can you make using all of these letters? So please note, you have to use all the letters, not just a few of them. So you have an I, T, N, S, E, L. So please go ahead and type that into the chat. Guess what words that you can make from those letters. And so now we're going to go to a poll. So between A, B, C, D, and E, can you make Leanne or Amy with those letters? Leanne has the exact same number of letters. You guys, Seb, Manpreet, Tina, are you seeing anything in the chat? Any guesses so far?
No, we haven't got any guesses in the chat. If anyone has any answers that they might want to share with us, feel free to put them in the chat and we can discuss them. But yeah, there's no other comments right now.
All right, so we'll go ahead and dive right in. So the answer is, of those letters, listen and silent are 2 words you can make from those letters. And I don't see the poll numbers yet. But silent and listen have the exact same letters. Do we think that's a surprise? It actually is a pretty important statement there. The idea of listening is important for many things, but from a clinical researcher standpoint, it's really important that clinical researchers listen to patients. I would also say, for you all, think about everything you do on a daily basis, whether it's with your brother or sister, with a teacher, with a parent, with a grandparent. To be silent is actually a very good thing because you can listen, and that works in reverse as well. So the idea for clinical research is where researchers are moving more and more forward the importance of listening to patients, and arguably youth are probably one of, if not the most important patients going forward. So again, thank you to iCAN for having these mini global chapters because it's really important for you all to have a voice. So again, use listen and silent have the same.
Had a good one. They said tinsel. So we didn't think about that. So well done for that. There's a few comments. Yeah, those were 2 icons. So yeah, thanks guys.
Very good.
Just another one. Someone else has said enlist.
See, that's good. That's good. I didn't have those.
Very good.
Yeah, and Mary's also put a quote saying, "Be silent when you listen," which is also quite a good quote to share. So thank you guys for sharing.
Yes, great stuff. So next question, 35,000. I'm going to hold off. I think there's a little bit of delay. But 35,000, who can guess the significance of this number? There we go, 35,000. Who can guess the significance of this number? And we're going to give you 4 options here. So thinking about 35,000, is that, just pausing for a delay. Yep. So is that the number of slides for this session? Is it the number of decisions made in a day? Is it the number of people on this call? Or is it the number of iCAN chapters? Well, I can say...
Is it the amount of Cheerios? Cheerios, sorry. So that could also be it as well.
Well, luckily we have just under 35,000 slides. We have just under that. The number of people on this call, I know Leanne and Amy are expecting a high number. I don't know if it's 35,000, but it's going to be a good number. And then the number of iCAN chapters, I would say, I hope that's a future goal. Hopefully we can have that many chapters. But the answer is that it's the estimated number of decisions made in a day. And Tina, Seb, Manpreet, any interesting comments in the chat? So we have, think about that estimation, 35,000 decisions on any given day. So from the moment you wake up, whether it's choosing which socks or shoes to put on, what you're going to have for breakfast, moving throughout the day, every thought decision you have, that's a huge number. And it's probably going to be 50,000 for some people, 20,000 for others. So thinking about that, imagine with clinical research. And imagine being a patient, but then also being a patient who is in a clinical study. And the idea, and I'll pose this to Amy and Leanne, do we think if the average number of decisions is 35,000, Amy and Leanne, do you think that number is going to increase for someone who's in a clinical study? Or how about the researcher and researchers who contribute to that study design, to that protocol? Do you think those number of decisions are going to increase? I would say yes. So what you're looking at now, that's intentionally blurry. Don't worry about the focus, but that's one page of a schedule of events within a protocol. And a protocol is a document that's designed to outline the intentions of the study, the patient population, what are the objectives, the timeline. Protocols can be anywhere between 50 to 150 pages. It's just crazy. There's a huge amount of information there. So thinking about the decisions you make as a patient, but then going into a clinical study, there are a lot of decisions that you would have to make and adhere to and think about every day within a clinical study. So moving from left to right, and I won't go a lot into some of these definitions, but again, a protocol is developed for a study, but every patient, she or he, is then to be consented into a study. So I want you all to think about now, there we go. I want you all to think about now that you're in a clinical study. And we'll get into it a little bit later if you already have been. But think about being in a clinical study in your daily life. What grade are you in at school? How many brothers and sisters do you have? Are you driving yet? Are you in middle school or high school? Your daily life, even without being in a clinical study, what do you see as some potential opportunities or challenges? Think about what you may benefit from within a clinical study. And I want you to think about your own situation. So now that there's not going to be any polling, but we want to really ask you some questions. So I invite you to chat and answer as you see fit. We'll probably touch on a few points, but think about not only challenges, but solutions. Again, we want to listen to you. So the idea of being in a study, is it a 6-month study? Is it a year-long study? Are you going on weekends? Are you going during the middle of school? Does a parent or grandparent have to take you somewhere? Think about those challenges. So on that note, our first question, let's say you are wanting to join a study and you need to be consented, which means you need to be aware of what that study means. What are some topics you would want to know? What would you want to know about that study? A couple of examples. How long is the study? How many visits do I have? Is it what's required of me? What type of tests will I be taking? Think about that and please chat in. Think about what you would want to know about that study, because the intent of a consent form is it's an informed consent. The goal is for you not to consent to be in that study unless you have all your questions answered and are given the time to talk and to ask questions. So Manpreet, Seb, Tina, would you have any comments so far?
Yeah, John is asking, do we mean an interventional or an observational study?
John's already diving in with the questions. You tell me, John. You pick. Your pick.
One question is, will it hurt? Potential risk factors from, oh God, I'm not great with the names.
Mary said, what are the risks?
Right.
So a lot of the questions seem about risks. And then
time commitment from Mitali.
Yes. And Amy point out a really good factor as a parent, how could you balance time away from work, miss school days and practice times? So
yeah, we got another one about not missing school. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So that was what, 30 seconds? I mean, imagine if you had 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour. So John's question is very important. All those questions are coming from your personal experience. So for a clinical study, it's really important for that doctor, for she or he, to talk to you and talk to your parent, talk to your guardian. Sometimes I know we as in the industry, you do not want to take that for granted, the idea of consent. That's hugely important because it gives the opportunity to have all those questions answered. And that's really important to have that communication, have that dialogue.
There's a question from Reese. Who will see my data and which age group is the target?
Perfect questions. Really, just the nature of your questions are awesome, guys. Good stuff. So now moving forward a bit to visits. What questions would you have about the visits? Including, would you be able to go drive yourself somewhere? Would you be available to home visits? There's, home health nursing. What questions would you have or ideas would you have about visits? Is transportation a concern or is it not? Are you driving yourself? My oldest son now is 16. He's driving himself. He could drive himself to a doctor's appointment. Not so much for my 10-year-old. So the idea of visits, how would that affect or how would that come into play with your daily schedule? Are you in school? Are you out of school? Again, weekends, afternoon, that type of thing. So any thoughts or comments or questions?
We haven't had any questions about visits just yet, but I'm guessing they're probably typing them.
And they don't have to be questions either. There could be suggestions or there could be comments of what's too many visits.
Yeah, here we go. How often will I have to go to the hospital? How long will there be? So those are good questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maya's asking how many times
would I visit?
So again, think about that 35,000. So a few minutes ago, we were just talking about socks. We're going to have to eat. Now we're diving in deeper to a clinical study. So guys, if you get anything from this discussion, realize that your view is important. It's important now. It's going to be important tomorrow. You're an advocate for yourself. And the fact that you're even on this call, I commend all of you for that. So continue that kind of that expectation that you are an advocate for yourself, that you can bring questions and comments and solutions to the table.
Mitch, we got a good one here that we'll be talking about later. Could they be virtual visits?
Yeah.
We'll get into that.
Naya, that's a very good question. Yeah.
You all are great. This is awesome. So I moved ahead a little bit, thinking about results and feedback. Let's say you're in a year-long study. Maybe you're 6 months into it. Have you heard anything from the doctor? Did she or he give you information? We call them principal investigators. Have they been communicating to you? They're study coordinators. Have they been communicating to you? What are some things you would want to know? Maybe it's in that middle time of the clinical study. What would you want to know? Also, what kind of feedback would you want to give? We ask with UCB, we have surveys that we give to our clinical study participants. And we ask, how are you doing? How are you being treated? What is your experience? So what kind of feedback might you want to give? Maybe what you thought about and was important to you during that consenting process, has that panned out? Did they give you the correct information? Are your expectations being met or not? That's a huge, huge piece there. So again, think about not just questions, but any comments or observations you may have in the sense of being in the middle of the study and hearing about your results or giving feedback to your healthcare provider.
Henry would like to know, was the study successful?
Good question, Henry. Good question.
And Mokshita, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, is asking, has my data benefited the study at this point? Which is also a really good question.
Did the study reach its goal? Was the study successful? And then a young person from Netherlands commented saying, we want to know whether we have contributed.
Perfect. All good. And that ties in toward the end as well, that the importance of a person who's committing to be in a clinical study. They're a clinical study participant, and they should hear about their results. They should hear about their efforts. And that's really a goal for the industry, is to make sure that's commonplace. That should be just like brushing teeth every day. The idea that anyone who participates in a study, they have a right to hear about their input and to hear how they've helped make a difference. All right, so going forward a little bit, Tina, we're going to jump to you, and there is a little bit of delay. Okay. So everybody get ready for your to answer some questions here.
Yeah,
I'll
we
pause.
have a lot more questions to you about clinical studies. So the first one is, how long do you think it takes to develop a new drug? So just type your guess into the chat, and we'll tell you in a little bit after you've guessed some answers.
So let's see. How long does it take to develop a new drug?
So do you think it's months or years? How many?
Hours.
All right, you ready, Tina? There we go.
Yeah, sure. So on average, it takes 10 years to develop a drug, from the very first conception of a new molecule that could be used as a drug to the final approval and the drug being available to patients in the different countries. And it can take up to 15 years even in some cases. So that's a really long time if you think about it. By the time that the drug is approved, it might not even be the latest new idea for treatment. So yeah, that's I see we have some guesses here. So what I see is most people think it's a lot shorter, so 2 to 3 years, 5 years, 5 to 10 years is closer, I think. But yeah, it takes a really long time.
Long time. All right.
The next question we have is, how much do you think it costs to develop a new drug? And I believe we have a poll for this, actually. So these are the four numbers that we're giving you. So is it $85,000? Is it $400,000? Is it $5 million? Or is it $2.6 billion? What do you think?
Let's see what everybody thinks.
Yeah. So I think answers
still coming in.
A lot of people think it's 5 million, 2.6 billion. So the correct answer is actually $2.6 billion, which is 2.3 billion euros and approximately 2.1 billion British pounds. So as you can see, that's a huge amount of money that pharma companies put into the development of new drugs that we work on all the time.
Cool. Thanks, Tina. So I'll be talking to you guys about social media. Just think about any kind of networks you use on your phone. It can also be streaming services, so like Netflix, Spotify, Hulu. So all those kind of things that you kind of use on a daily basis on your phone, either as an app or on your laptop. And really the first question I would like you to think about is, what platforms do you use? So, from the moment you wake up to the time you go to sleep, what platforms are you actively using on your phone? And just list them out to us. There could be some that are on here, and there might be some that are not on here. So we have Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, of course. Any kind of platforms that you use every day. That'd be cool to find out. I know I spend a lot of time on TikTok right now, so I wonder if everyone else is doing the same.
Manpreet, I don't even know the one next to Hulu on the right there.
On the right, that's Reddit. It's a forum.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So a lot of good memes from there. Yeah, if you like memes, you could probably find them on there. So yeah. Oh, someone said TikTok. Someone said Netflix. Yes. Instagram. Reset Instagram, Snapchat, Google, Twitter. nice little mix there.
I'm old. I use Facebook.
I use Facebook as well. So
Yeah.
I mean, and then we've got Snapchat. That's a cool one. Pinterest, interesting. Oh, okay. Reddit.
Amy,
Someone.
don't feel bad. Amy says she uses Facebook too, and she's old.
So Manpreet, keep an eye on time. So how often do you guys use those platforms?
Is it every day? Is it a few times a day? Are there some that you check once or twice and others you check actively throughout? Oh, someone said Grouply. It's a new one. Cool. Okay.
YouTube Kids. My kids use those.
Oh, is it? It's cool. Okay, someone said daily. That's exactly how often I use my apps. Okay, so look, so another person, Anna said daily, every day, daily. So, I mean, it's a fair perception to say that we spend a lot of time on apps, on our phone, on numerous times a day. And thinking about all these things, are there any new platforms that you have started to use that have just come out? And if you have, just let us know about them, because it's always cool to kind of find out about new ones, know what people are using. So if there's any that are listed on here that you have used but they're not on here, let us know about that. That would be cool as well.
Oops. Sorry.
Oh, so the next question I have is, thinking about all these platforms you use, where have you seen, if you have seen any, adverts for clinical studies? So, for example, sometimes when I go on Facebook, I see clinical studies because of my search history. But have you ever come across any, and whereabouts have you seen them? If you have seen any, if you haven't, let us know. I feel like with Facebook, it's probably more easier, because with TikTok, there's a lot of funny videos on there. So I can't imagine a clinical study being advertised, but that would be cool.
And on that note, Manpreet, with the next question, where would you all like to see ads? Maybe you haven't seen them on some channels and platforms, but where would you want to see ads?
Where do you think it would be good to see them? So think about something that you use and somewhere that you probably would be more inclined to kind of see them. So, if you're always on Instagram, would it be good to see on Instagram? And also, do you find that there are some apps where you would rely and believe the clinical studies are more safe? So if they're, for example, if you saw them on Google or Facebook, would you feel like they're more kind of safe and legit, or in comparison to seeing it on like TikTok or something like that? Are there any apps that you would find more safe to see a clinical study being advertised?
Tina said, what do we have so far in the chat?
We have Twitter, YouTube.
Yeah, a lot of social media.
Instagram, Pinterest.
Oh, someone said Amy said a pediatric website. That would be a good post.
Yep.
I haven't seen
Snapchat stories. Interesting one. Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
That is very good.
And keep posing the questions. We will have some time at the end. So I realize there are a lot of questions that have popped up too. So I know Amy and Leanne, they'll help us out too with reminding us to circle back on some of those questions as needed. All right, Seb, going to your section now.
All right, thanks. So I got a couple slides here that I just wanted to share with everyone. So really, we'll be talking about kind of the overall communication and engagement and how you all do this in your day-to-day lives. I mean, think about it, how you do it personally with friends or family versus, if you're at school or somewhere else, or with your doctors and stuff like that. So the first question there we want to see is really how you communicate with your friends and family. And another comment there to the right is, does anybody know what that is, or has ever used one of those? I know Mitch has a bunch of those. So
I still have one right now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that cord. Oh man, I remember, just being happy to get a longer cord. That was a fun day when we had an extension to that. You could actually walk about, 10 feet and still use the phone.
I still got to experience those growing up. So I don't know if that's a blessing or if that's something else. So
I think we're still waiting maybe for some to come in.
I used to sit out in the hallway on the floor with the phone.
Megan's called it an old-time phone, which is probably a fair point.
Good job, Megan.
You're right. Oh, Anna said a landline, which would be an old telephone primarily. Someone, Anaya, I think that's the name, called it a rotary phone or the spinning phone, which is interesting. I haven't heard that before. Regina said I usually communicate through texting and calling, but unfortunately through this phone you can't text, so we just keep calling.
Yeah.
All right, and
saying she uses text and call
through messages. Okay, and all right, good. So we'll move on to the next. So here we just wanted to really see, in general, based on whether it was those social media apps that Manpreet just shared about, or just apps in general, how often you all are using apps on your mobile devices or tablets or any other types of means of way to leverage a smartphone or a smart tablet. So we just really want to see how often you guys are using apps versus websites and other means there. So I think we're seeing daily.
Yeah, daily.
A lot. That's a good, yeah. Find myself doing that as soon as I wake up. I go right for my phone.
Yeah, it's like a newspaper. I'm reading a newspaper. So Anna said too much. I think that's a description.
I think it's really become a part of our lives by now.
Yeah.
And would you, is it, how about the devices? Is it mainly your phone? Is it a tablet, a laptop, Alexa, smartwatches?
Typewriter.
Type of device.
So we said before that he uses his phone the most, so I guess that answers this question as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
See, that typewriter is super cool. Yeah.
All right. So.
Oh, someone said Chromebook. That's a fun one.
Very nice. Chromebook. My son has one of those for school.
Phone and computer.
Yeah, phone and computer. Use that a lot.
So speaking of school, so Sam, I went to the next one about favorite ways to learn.
Yeah, so good segue there. Thanks. It's basically your favorite ways to learn. Is everybody here learning through what means? Are you still kind of like me? I like to learn through traditional book reading, or are still on paper, or are we all digital, audio, video? What type of learners are your favorite ways to get your information and read up on being sent to you?
And while everyone's typing, thinking about, again, clinical research, if you use apps every day, do you find that apps would be helpful to you while you're in a study, or maybe while a brother or sister's in a study? Or in terms of getting information, do you think that a text is a good way to get information from your doctor, or email, or phone call, or all three? Thinking about that aspect of communication and engagement, what would be your thoughts on what's a good way to have good communication with your doctor?
Yeah, a lot of people like hands-on learning.
Yeah,
hands-on learning. Yeah.
Henry says, "Not online, please."
Someone said a video. Maya said a video game. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Ree says visual learner.
Yeah.
All right, so Seb, I'm jumping to the next one.
All right, so we'll move on to the next one here. So this is a logo, and it's also has a specific tagline. And so really what we want you is anything that comes to mind in terms of when you see this logo, what are some of the things that you think about, that you see, what it means to you, how does it make you feel? Do you like the colors? Do you like the name? Anything that comes straight to the front of mind when you see those colors and the name and the logo itself. So this could be anything.
Yeah, and Amy said there's no wrong answer. So
Yes.
Yep.
it's really about what you think, how you like it, and it's totally fine. You say you don't like it.
Yeah, be as honest as you guys want.
Yep.
To love, togetherness, and family from Reese, which is really nice, positive.
It's great.
Maya said she doesn't like the orange. Nice comment, Maya.
Yep.
I'm with you, Maya.
Yeah.
Orange.
I'm a blue fan for sure.
Healthy heart. Love nature, says Maya. I would change the name, but I love the logo, says Megan. That's interesting, Megan. What would you change the name to? Henry says taking care of others, healthy life.
Good one, Henry.
Very good. Those are great comments. Thank you. And one more slide here in terms of similar again. First thing that jumps to mind when you see this logo, as well as the overall tagline there of My UCB Experience, as well as the logo.
A hug.
A hug.
Andrea.
That's good.
I can see how she thinks that.
Yeah.
Snowflake, says Mary. Looks like a very colourful snowflake.
Compass, being together. Those are great.
Nice. I like them being together.
The compass.
Yeah.
That is good.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Okay.
Love those comments.
All right, I'm switching gears.
Think we're going, Mitch?
Yep.
So now we'd really like to focus on clinical studies. So we would be curious to know if any of you have ever been in a clinical study, and if you have been, which parts did you like the most and which did you like the least? So was there any experience that that you really didn't like and that you think could be done better? Is there any, I don't know, did you build a friendship with the people that you were working with? Any feedback would be great. So we've had Sahiti who said they were on a sleep study. So what was your experience like? If you would love to share.
Mary said no. Neither have I even, so I can relate to that.
Yeah. Got one more yes. So is there anything you want to share about the study? What parts you like, what you didn't like? It's also fine to type it later on into the chat.
Yeah. Rihanna said I have, and I got a toy at the end. Hope it was a good toy.
Good. Excellent. So for those of you that have been on a study, how did you hear about it? Did it come from your doctor? Did it come from your parents? Did you read about it somewhere? Did you find information online?
I wonder if anyone saw any ads for clinical study that they joined. That'd be interesting as well. Doctors, anywhere online, Google, any websites.
Newspapers, if they still exist.
You said endocrinologist.
Maya said she's been in 5. Wow. So, including iCAN and nationwide children's hospitals. Cool.
And that last question, let's change it a bit. Not only would you join another study, but is everyone interested in a study? Would everyone on this call be wanting to join a study? So kind of a 2-part question. If you have been on a study, would you join again? But then secondly, for those who haven't, would you be interested in joining one?
We've had some answers who said their mum told them about the story. So parents play an important part. Kara said my doctor.
All right, so Tina, I'm going to go to the next one, next slide, okay?
Go ahead.
Okay, so this slide just about your kind of thoughts, what you feel about clinical studies. I think it should hopefully have loaded by now. So yeah, it's kind of an open discussion. You can talk as freely as you want. Any positive, negatives, just be as honest. So first is what are your thoughts on clinical studies? Is it positive? Is it negative? Overall, how do you feel about them?
And that first one, and sorry to interrupt, Manpreet, but that first one about, can studies that fail still be good? The meaning there is that, remember our stat earlier that it takes anywhere between 10, 15 years to develop a drug. And remember, too, the cost. So many studies fail. But the question we pose to you is, do you think that necessarily can be a bad thing? So in other words, if you get a B on a test, but you didn't get an A, it doesn't mean you didn't learn from that. So certainly the idea of studies, even for those studies that don't meet their expectation, there still can be some valuable information there. So it's almost like many of those studies and those protocols that may not work out can build a good foundation for future studies.
Yeah, we have a lot of maybes.
Yeah,
so
maybes.
It depends. Everything, definitely.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And then the next question is, should clinical research continue? So think about how important it is for clinical research to be able to get drugs and medication for conditions. But then also you could think about the negative sides to clinical studies. So what do you feel? Do you feel like it should continue? Do you feel like it should stop? Let us know your thoughts, positive and negative. And honesty, of course, is completely fine.
And again, that context is not about just one study, but just about clinical research as a whole. Really, you as youth, you're driving this car for the future. And the idea of, do you think clinical research is important? I think the idea of, for example, now with the coronavirus and COVID, there's a lot of research being done that, wasn't being done on it just 6 months ago, or a year ago. So the idea, do you feel that clinical research as a whole is important? That could be specific to a condition that you or a family member is dealing with or others. Please let us know what you think.
Yeah, Cooper said yes. So did Mary. She said always. Another yes.
Answer on diversity. So Pamela says diversity is very important, definitely skewed towards professional families, not enough effort including looked after children. Not enough effort in including looked after children.
Good point, Pamela. Great point.
Rianne also made a good point saying yes, because there'll be more conditions and diseases in the future, which is what we're also experiencing right now, a new disease, and we're trying to find a cure to that. So, anything? Cool. Okay.
Oops. Sorry, I went to the next one by accident, but...
Yeah, in the presentation earlier, we already had someone who wanted to be an engineer. So.
Oh, cool.
And I think Dr. Chang alluded to this too. Is there just one career path? I think we can all say no, that there's quite many different career paths.
Henry just made a really nice kind of point to sum it up. He goes, clinical research has been the main way on drug development since the early development of medication. So it should definitely continue since we are facing a new challenge and disease every day. It's a really nice answer.
Yeah, great point.
Wants to be a neurosurgeon?
Oh, nice.
Good one.
Very nice.
Lots of studying required, I believe.
Olivia is interested in bioengineering and pathology.
And this ties in nicely to the thought of diversity. So earlier, that slide, we talked about diversity, but also from a career standpoint, to have different perspectives, to really have a diverse group, both in the patient population, but also in the different career paths. So that there's value in different lenses, and the idea that, again, you as youth, you're bringing in, and you're gaining experience every day, but you're bringing different experiences, and that's what's really important for research. So, the idea of viewing something through different lenses, that brings a huge amount of value.
Megan has a very interesting career path ahead of her. She wants to be a turtle rescuer.
That is cool.
I think we have a lot of people who want to go into the medical field. So we have lots of doctors and lots of engineering.
Yeah, the dermatologist, which is cool.
All right, so I'm going to jump to the video. So thanks, everybody. We have about 15 minutes, give or take. So we want to show you this video. It's about 3 minutes long. We'll look forward to getting any feedback you have, but please, as you're looking through it, think about these questions. What is a top priority during a clinical study? Can a study participant stop being in a study at any time? And are all clinical studies successful? So with that, we'll start the video.
Clinical studies. Most of you have probably heard about them, but what are they exactly? Well, clinical studies play a very important part in drug development. Many people don't know it, but making a medicine is a long, complex, and costly process that can take up to 15 years. And like with most things, it starts with an idea. That idea then spends years being studied and worked on in a lab. This is called preclinical testing. Preclinical is the testing phase before it goes into humans. It answers certain questions about a new drug. Then, the most promising ones move on to clinical studies with people. Clinical studies are research studies that help doctors and scientists learn more about a disease and new ways to improve treatment. A study drug may go through extensive clinical studies for as many as 9 years, and these studies typically involve 3 steps or phases. Each phase researches different aspects of the study drug. The goal? To approve only the best tolerated and most effective medications. So, how is this done? The study drug may be compared to a placebo, which contains no actual medicine, to easily see the study drug's effectiveness. Or it may be compared to a drug that is already approved and seen as the standard, to see how the safety and efficacy profiles of the 2 drugs compare. If you are eligible and want to join a clinical study, you will be assigned at random to a treatment or placebo group. In some studies, neither you nor the doctor will know which group you are in, to help keep things fair and unbiased. During a study, you will have frequent visits to the study center to check your health. Your safety is a top priority, so doctors will keep a close eye on you throughout the study. Being in a clinical study is completely voluntary, and you can stop participating at any time. But by joining a clinical study, you can contribute to medical advancements. Also, you have a chance of taking a new drug before it's available to the public. However, as with all drugs, there's a chance you may experience side effects or that your symptoms may not improve. Not all clinical studies are successful. Out of the several thousand discoveries made in the lab, only one may make it to the pharmacy shelf. This process of identifying a successful drug takes many attempts and can cost a pharmaceutical company an average of $2.6 billion or 2.3 billion euros. The making of a medicine is a long and complicated process, but through it, the medicines that are approved can help people all over the world, thanks to clinical study participants. For more information on clinical studies, talk to your doctor and visit ucb.com/clinical-studies or clinicaltrials.gov.
All right, so we hope you liked the video. First question, what is a top priority during a clinical study? So let's see what you have to say in the chat. I'll give you a few seconds, but the top priority first and foremost is safety, and it's always safety. And the idea is that any study participant, she or he, can drop out of that study at any time. And that's really key. So can a participant stop being in a study? Yes. Whether it's the first few minutes, the fifth month, doesn't matter. Are all clinical studies successful? I think we've already answered that a bit. The answer is no. And that can actually be a good thing. So to the idea of mistakes and failure, whether it's a clinical study or whether it's your daily life, mistakes are good. Failure is good. You want to learn from that. So, please, if you all get some messages from us, think that you want to go out in the world and go make some mistakes. Obviously, learn from them. Learn from other people. As Dr. Chang mentioned earlier, having a mentor, seeking advice from somebody, certainly a parent or a grandparent or a sibling to learn from people. But, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to fail. Because if none of us were willing to make a mistake, we would never see success. So now thinking a bit broader about the video, what are your thoughts on the video? And like Amy said earlier, there's no right or wrong answer. Think about the video, the idea of length, the visuals, the information, the content, the topics. Many of you are very experienced in clinical research, but any topics that either weren't mentioned or were, any feedback is good.
Henry actually mentioned a great illustration, and said, I love it. So very good. Cool.
And please keep typing in those thoughts. And if you're interested in other languages, we've actually had that video translated into 7 different languages. It'll be on UCB.com pretty soon, as well as our YouTube channel. But think about if you do have an interest in other languages. Again, topics. What research topics would you want to see in another video? Perhaps not a 3-minute video. We realize that's kind of lengthy in some degrees, but think about topics that you may want to see in a future video.
Yes, a comment from Henry. It says, very precise, great way to learn new things. Reese saying, very informative. Would have liked to see more kid participants, but that was all.
Good feedback.
I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Scott says the visuals are great.
Yeah.
Mary says very good. Sadie says nice. So really positive feedback, I think.
Good stuff. So we'll move to the last question, but please keep thinking about these thoughts. For those as you're typing in, please continue to think about thoughts on the video, what topics that you might want to see in a future video. So finally, in closing, we have about just over 5 minutes. So thinking about, we had again about 55 minutes to an hour, and we wanted to get your input. We wanted to be silent. We wanted to listen. Think about, why is your input so valuable? Imagine if we had a focus group. Maybe we didn't have just an hour. Maybe we had a whole day. Let's say you're able to hang out with some researchers for a full day and give your feedback, to answer questions. Why is that important? Thinking about diversity, thinking about your importance. Why is your input so valuable? And as you type that, that globe, that's it, folks. We all live here. So the notion that we all are part of this world, we all can, make it better. So think about that value that you all bring. So in closing, I think we have some time now for some Q&A. I do want to thank you all for the time and having us on. Certainly want to thank iCAN again, but certainly thank all of you. We appreciate the time. So Amy, Leanne, were there any questions that popped up that you'd like us to ask, or we can open it up now for any of the kids and young people to bring up some topics now? Seb and Tina and Manpreet, if you see any, feel free to answer too.
I remember there was a few at the start, so I'm just trying to go to the top because there was a few really good questions.
So I see one question. Someone asked, why was it taking so long to develop COVID? And I can give my answer, but I would say that for any newer disease or condition, COVID is fairly new from my understanding, but you'd have to do a lot of tests and you have to make mistakes and learn. So that's a simple answer to a very difficult question. So even without COVID, remember that it takes typically 10 to 15 years to go through all those steps, knowing that safety is always at the utmost importance.
And I remember Reese at the start asked, how does my personal data compare to the entire study? That's a good question.
Yep, good question. Hannah, I'm sorry, there was one question I just saw, Hannah, you had.
What is your best advice for someone that wants to start a career in research?
Yeah, go ahead and take that one, Tina.
Oh boy, yes, for putting me on the spot. Well, I would say, first of all, if you have an interest in science, then go ahead and go to school, get good grades, good enough to get you to be accepted as a researcher. And there's lots of different options to be in research. You could be at a university doing the actual basic research that helps find answers. You could also, like us, go work for a pharma company, for another company in science, and go to the business side of it and help bring drugs to the market and get into the administrative side of it. There's lots of career paths. And I would say try to find out what's best for you and what you would try to enjoy, what you would enjoy as a career. And maybe if you have the chance, even go to a company and ask if you could be an intern for a little bit, just to see what it's actually like to work in research with a company or at a university or whatever your interest is. I don't know. Does anyone have anything to add?
If you don't mind, Tina, I want to pick up on your comment about doing what's important to you and what you're passionate about. So, you might be someone who enjoys writing, who is a wonderful writer. There's an entire field with medical writing. You think about those protocols and writing that protocol. There's a lot that goes to that. Providing study results to patient, that requires a writing skill, knowing that audience. Maybe you hate writing, but you're a people person. You really enjoy working with people. You could work with patient experience and the idea of working with patients and running focus groups. And perhaps you might be in a pharma situation, or you might be at a local study site. Imagine you're a person who enjoys working with people, and you have a young teenager that comes to you and she or he is really concerned about their situation. They're concerned about research and they're asking you questions. It might be the way you say something and do something. You bring that experience to the table, and someone like myself may not have that expertise that you would. So again, there's no one career path. So again, like Dr. Chang alluded to earlier, you may have a wonderful knowledge of or interest in science. You may have a wonderful knowledge or interest in healthcare. There are a lot of different channels that you can go. So I think the idea of exploring, to Tina's point, exploring whether it's career paths, finding someone you can ask questions to. We all know you utilize social media now. It's a great way to find out information. So certainly being proactive in that realm, and then again, going back to your passion, going back to your interest.
Yeah, or you can go ahead and be a computer programmer and program software that can help with studies or with diseases, or like a wearable device that can track seizures or track body movement or things like that. There's lots of options, and I think these days with technology and the internet being so big, that field will only expand. So
I want to just jump in. Thank you all. We're probably a minute over time, but I'll defer now to Amy and Leanne. Thank you again, everybody, for the time. I know we really appreciate it and really see some value. So look forward to more interactions in the future.